In this video, I'm gonna share with you one rule that if you're gonna apply in every single one of your games, you're gonna immediately become a much stronger chess player. Moreover, I'm gonna show you how exactly you should use it to find the best move in the chess position and avoid blunders. What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. So I have been playing chess for like 20 years now. I have learned chess for as far as I can remember myself, and I have achieved my dream of becoming an international master, and I was so happy about it. But now I have a new dream, a new goal to become a Grandmaster, that is the highest possible title in chess. To get there, I decided to learn from the best. Jacob Agard has created an entire series called Grandmaster Preparation for people like me who is trying to achieve this goal. It's a series of 6 books dedicated to different chess parts, and if you go through all of them, then basically you know everything you need to know to get there. Of course, it still requires a huge effort on your side, but well, nothing really meaningful in life is not easy to achieve. Anyway, in his books, Jacob shares very simple yet incredibly effective method to pretty much never blunder, as well as always find the best move in the position. Of course, it's not like 100% it's possible, we are doing our best, but we are still only humans, not machines, but this method simplifies your life so much. Jacob noticed that when strong players think about the position, they try to find the right move, they try to understand what's going on the chessboard, they tend to ask themselves certain questions. And there are 3 questions among them that are especially relevant and most often asked by the strong chess players. So basically, if you're thinking of those when you are trying to figure out what's going on in your own game, it makes so much sense to ask yourself exactly those questions. Now, of course, the situations might be difficult, but that's gonna cover like 99% of all possible situations that's gonna happen in your game, and in every case, it's so useful to try using it in your games. So the first question is, what are the weaknesses? So you are looking at the chess position, and we are going to take this first exercise from the book from Jacob Agard. Here it's white to move. So we are thinking from the white's perspective, what are the weaknesses in the position? But of course, we don't only think about our opponent's weaknesses, we also think about our own weaknesses. So we absolutely must take full control of what is going on the whole board, not just a part of it. And this is the mistake that so many players are doing. They are only focused on a certain part, like I'm playing here, I want to attack, I don't care what else is going on. Or they only focused on themselves. This is a huge mistake. You never play chess alone. You must always think what your opponent is gonna do, and that is the second question, but let's start with this one. So we think, okay, this d6 pawn might be a weakness for my opponent, but unfortunately it's so difficult for white pieces to get to it. There is a weakness on a5 potentially, because that's an isolated pawn, so always some black pieces have to protect them. So it's also very difficult for us to attack. We are attacking it with the rook, but difficult to create another attack. Now, those seem to be the only weaknesses in our opponent's camp. But what about our position? What are the weaknesses that we have? Well, first of all, that's b3 pawn that can be attacked. That is a base pawn of our entire pawn chain. We have to be careful. Maybe there are some more weaknesses in the position. So I suggest, before I show you how to use the method to find the best move here, as well as reveal the remaining questions to you, you take your time and try to think yourself, what is the best move for white in this position? Just pause the video. Trust me, if you're involved in this process yourself, it's going to be so much more efficient. Okay, I really hoped that you have taken your time to think what white should do here. So there is one more potential weakness here for white in this position. And that is very well connected to the second question you must always ask yourself according to Jacob Agard. Namely, what is your opponent's idea? You carefully look at all the possibilities from the black side. And here I would add my own rule that I always advise you use in your games, which is always starting with the most active opportunities, both for you and for your opponent. Those most active opportunities are checks, captures, threats, and active moves. This is the 4-step system that helps you to find the best move in every possible position, as well as avoid the blunders. Because if you think about it, all of the blunders that can happen, like 99% of them, are going to happen because of a check, because of the capture, or because of a threat from your opponent that you haven't noticed. So here, there are no checks available for black, but they do have an opportunity to take this pawn on e4. And once they do that, this e4 pawn becomes a target. And then this knight jumps to g5, it creates pressure here, the second knight might jump here as well, and we constantly have to deal with it. It's our headache. So it's obvious that our opponent's idea is to get here, is to take on e4 and attack. So of course you ask those questions to try to understand what to do, right? So logically our goal is to prevent that opponent's idea. So how could we do that? How could we prevent creating this weakness in our camp, as well as prevent our opponent from achieving his goal? We can simply take this pawn on f5. This way, we never gonna get this weakness on e4, and moreover, we have created a weakness for our opponent, this f5 pawn, because you normally never want to move it forward. We have a light square's bishop. Once we remaneuver it to the c2 square, it's going to control the whole diagonal, and the dark square's bishop for black is not that efficient because all of the pawns will be on dark squares. And if you don't push the f-pawn, well, then you always need to protect it, and that's going to be a problem for you. There is the third question that helps us to understand this idea even better, which is the worst placed piece? Once again, we ask the question both for us and our opponent. So for us, it's clear that the worst piece is this bishop on e2. Yes, we have a pair of bishops, but I mean, all of our pawns are on the light squares here, except for the little guy on h2. So as long as that is the case, and there are no open diagonals, our bishop is completely useless. And from this point of view, and also just a general strategic principle, if you have a two bishops advantage, it's very beneficial for you to open up the position. So e takes f is doing that, is opening the road for the bishop. Once you maneuver it to c2, you have an active bishop, you don't have a weakness on e4, and you have a target to attack. So now that you know the three questions you should ask yourself to find the best move in every possible chess position, namely, what are the weaknesses, what is your opponent's idea, and which piece is worstly placed on the entire board, you can apply those to find the best move in this exercise. It's white to move and find the best move. Please take your time. I promise you it's going to be very, very efficient, very useful for you. Before I reveal the answer to you, I want to say big thank you to the sponsor of this video, the Chessnut company, for providing this beautiful Chessnut Evo for the purposes of this analysis, showing you those puzzles, as well as pretty much every training I do every single day. I mean, this board is amazing. It has absolutely everything you need. You can play here with a real human being on chess.com, on Lichess, and you're using the actual board to do that. The feeling is absolutely incredible. It's like you cannot compare it with just playing online. You can also just play against the board, so against the Stockfish or against Maya, the computer they have made themselves. And this is also an incredible experience because you are not risking like revealing your opening preparation to potential opponents. You're just playing against a very strong opponent. You can adjust the level to your needs and then analyze the game. Very important, always analyze the game once you have played it. This is just a fantastic device to use. It has screen here, it has absolutely everything you need. I can download all of the positions. The book I'm currently working on is also on this board, so I don't need anything else. There are no distractions, and this is exactly what you need to train chess efficiently. If you are interested in this board or any other board from Chessnut, there is a huge discount thanks to the Journey to Grandmaster coupon code, or just use the link in the description and that's gonna work automatically. The worst placed piece in this position is this bishop on b5. It's absolutely stupid. I mean, look at those pawns. They're all on the light squares. The bishop cannot do absolutely anything at all. So that means we would be happy to get rid of this knight, which is very active piece. I mean, it's potentially very dangerous here, and get rid of our bishop, which is also not that efficient because of those pawns. So what we need to do is to play f4 immediately here. Now, this is not a simple move to find if you don't think about those three questions, but if you do, it becomes pretty obvious, because if the knight comes to e4, which might seem like a nightmare, right? The knight is so huge here in the center of the board, but it turns out we can just take it, and now we just achieve our goal. We have a beautiful knight that is gonna control all of those pawns. So now if you take, let's say, with the D pawn, then we just play knight e3, we block it, we have this D pawn potentially coming forward, we are applying pressure on the f5 pawn, we can continue with g4, just creating our attack, bring the king to the h file, rook to g1 and just attack, as well as those potential breakthroughs in the center, as well as this huge weakness on the c4 square. So this is a terrible position for black. Now, if they take instead with the f-pawn there, we still play knight e3 with completely the same idea. We still apply pressure on the d5 pawn, but now our f-pawn is free to go. f5 is a huge threat. We have two connected passers there along the e and f file. The bishop is still stupid. g4 is still coming. I mean, this is devastating for black. That is why f4 is so powerful, but you can only understand that if you ask yourself those questions. And if the knight goes back to f7, well, then it's not that powerful like it was. We can still play knight to e3, still attack the f5 pawn, still g4 is coming. We have achieved so much. Let me know in the comments if you have managed to find the f4 move. The next position is completely different. It's totally open. You don't have that many pieces on the board. Why to move? Remember the 3 questions and try to find the best move. If you find this video useful so far, chances are you're really serious about growing your chess, about achieving your chess goals. I have developed an entire 10-day opening mastery program that enables you to build a complete, holistic, lifetime opening repertoire both for white and black. Absolutely everything you need to know to be prepared for any opponent you might face with both colors. You get lifetime access to more than 100 pure value video tutorials, about 100 practical exercises, so that you can immediately apply the knowledge you have just learned into real life experience. And of course, it's not only about opening theory, it's like a complete chess program, because you also learn what type of middle game principles you are gonna face in those positions, what kind of challenges you're gonna face depending on the level. By the way, it's not about this super pooper Grandmaster stuff that you're never gonna face in your own games. Instead, that's exactly what you need to face opponents on your level with real life examples, with a crazy amount bonus videos where I go like 1000 times deeper into what you really need to outplay your opponent in any given situation in terms of openings we are learning. Use the link in the description to read the reviews people write about the course. Take a look at the free tutorials so that you can get a taste of what to expect from the course, and of course to get a huge discount, because the entire program you get at a price of one single opening course, even much cheaper than that if you compare it to some Chessable courses. Okay, let's go through the questions together. What are the weaknesses? Well, the 2 obvious weaknesses are those pawns are e5 and c7. They're just very weak. Those are the weaknesses. But a third one, less obvious maybe, but even more important weakness is the king on g7. If you compare the kings, this one is much more vulnerable. So this is the problem for black. And this is what we should focus on. This is why the most obvious move, queen takes e5, is not as strong, because that would allow black to exchange the queens. And this is exactly what our opponent's idea is. If his king is more vulnerable, he would be happy to exchange the queens, because without the queens, it's very difficult to create some checkmating attack. Now, queen takes e5 still would give you some advantage here as white, but a4 pawn is also a weakness. Back to the first question of what are the weaknesses, and black is gonna attack it via bishop d7, and maybe you're gonna get an extra pawn in some variations, maybe a slight advantage, but it's very difficult to outplay your opponent in such a situation because the material is limited and there is no danger to his king. Instead, if you understand that, and if you are thinking that, okay, the king is actually a weakness for my opponent, he wants to exchange the queens, and I don't want to do that. So you're playing the move queen to c3, which is attacking both of those weaknesses, the c7 pawns and the e5 pawn, and even attacks the third weakness, the king here, because, well, once the pawn on e5 is gone, the king is in big trouble. Black can play rook c5, trying to attack the queen and block the attack of the c7 pawn. But once again, we don't take on e5, we don't allow the queen's trade, you just play queen to b2, and it's basically not possible to save the pawn on e5. If you try to play rook f5, for example, we can just play bishop to h3, attacking the rook and pushing it back, or we can play f4 using the pin and then still win the pawn. Or, for example, if black plays rook e8, trying to protect, once again we have this beautiful move. That would be hilarious. Black is just gonna collapse. So you still need to use your general chess knowledge, you still need to calculate the variations to find the best move in the position. But if you ask yourself those questions, those are like guiding principles. It helps you to think in the right direction, and I guess this is the most relevant thing. Next, to find those beautiful opportunities, you of course can use the 4-step system: checks, captures, threats, and active moves. Queen takes e5 would be a check here and a capture at the same time, but it turns out to be not so great. So it's not like I say a check, I make a check. No, you really think, you try to calculate the variations, you try to think what's your opponent idea. Very, very, very important question, never forget about it. And then you decide whether it's something good for you or not. If the check doesn't work, then you continue thinking, okay, the capture also, queen takes e5 is the only one, but queen to c3 is creating a threat. This is a huge threat and very difficult to deal with. So this is the move I'm gonna go for. I'm also calculating the lines. Rook to c5, I'm stepping back to b2, and there is nothing stopping me from winning the e5 pawn with the rook, maintaining the queens on the board, and then continuing my attack for free. The next position I like so much, it's white to move again. The material is so limited, yet the same principle applies, so feel free to pause the video for a second and find the best move for white. Don't forget those 3 questions. Okay, what are the weaknesses? Well, it's so clear here. The c5 is a weak pawn for white, it's attacked twice and it's basically not possible to defend it, and f7 pawn is a weakness for black. Once again, it's attacked twice, it's also protected twice, but once you take on c5, you should be careful as black. With the f7 pawn, there is basically no way to save it. But there are more weaknesses in white's camp. Basically, that the king, if the queen somehow comes and starts to create those checks, well, it's basically not possible to avoid them. So you start calculating those variations. Like if the bishop takes on c5, I'm gonna take on f7. The queen will take the knight back, and of course we don't want to exchange the queens, we have to take the bishop. But then this queen comes to f4 with a check, and we are in trouble because, well, the king is under attack and the e4 pawn is under attack, and that's very inconvenient. So basically, we understand that the idea of our opponent is to come to f4 with the queen and start chasing our pawns, attacking our king, creating problems for us. So what we need to do? We need to stop our opponent's idea. How to do that? Well, with the move g3, we are controlling the f4 square now, and there is no check available. If black just does nothing, then we continue improving our position with h4, we go forward, and black has absolutely nothing available for them, and we are going to destroy them. And if they try to take, well, you cannot take with the queen because of queen takes f7, so bishop takes c5, but now knight takes f7. Once again, you have to take it. If you take on f2 with the bishop, then knight h6 is winning. Basically every move is winning, but knight to h6 is very funny here, because if you go to h7, I have queen to g8 check, king takes, queen to h8, king to g5, and queen h4 checkmate. And if you go in the other direction, then we can just pick up all of the pawns, the king is still in trouble and white is winning. So black has to take the knight, but then we are taking the c5 bishop and we have achieved our goal. The f2 pawn is still protected by the queen f4 move is not possible. The queen can go to f3, but now we can just give a check here on c4, the king goes away, and just step back with the king. Everything is protected, we have an extra pawn. Yes, it's still quite a big work to convert it into the victory, but we have very good chances. Let's play as black for a second. In this position, it's black to move. Use the 3 questions and find the best move. Pause the video for a second, please. Take your time. What are the weaknesses? Well, the weakest thing in white's camp is the king, of course. If we can get to the king somehow with the queen, with the knight, that would be a checkmate, right? But the problem is this bishop somehow stands on the way, we cannot really do anything with the bishop being on the diagonal. We also have the c6 weakness that, well, might be an issue for us at some point. And of course, our opponent's idea is to put pressure on it, just to grab it, and then the b5 pawn is going to be hanging, so that's quite a headache for us. With all of that information, the best move is bishop to c4, because, well, if the bishop stands on the way, let's just remove it. At the same time, we are attacking, so that's a very active move, and we block the c-file so that the c6 pawn is not in trouble anymore. Let's calculate the variation. Our opponent takes it here, we just take it back, and now there is no time for white to take the c4 pawn, because, well, queen to h3 is coming. Let me show it to you. The knight g4 is the next move, and you are in big trouble if you're in white's shoes. So that's basically not possible for white to take that pawn. Instead, they have to play king to g2 move. Now, black has a very interesting move. If you haven't found it yet, please feel free to pause the video once again. It's very instructive, because I personally have thought initially that the move should be knight to d5, attacking here the queen and the knight. The idea being that if you take the pawn on c4, then I have the move rook to a4. I'm just pinning your knight, there is no way to defend it, and I'm winning. And if you have to take the knight on d5, then I'm gonna get a beautiful pawn structure, extra pawn, just a fantastic position. But unfortunately, it turns out that white can just step back with the queen first, still protecting the knight, and then rook takes c4 would be coming, so I'm not in time to play rook to b8. That is why I should start, and you should start as well, with the move rook c to b8 as black. This way, it's still not possible to take here the pawn because of rook to a4, and now, thanks to the fact that your queen is protected, you are not afraid of queen takes c6, you're gonna just take the knight and the game is over, you have an extra piece. And otherwise, knight d5 is a huge threat here. White can try rook to a1, but once again takes, and knight d5 with a double attack. We're attacking the queen and the knight, and there is no time to take the pawn. Basically, you must take here, but then once again we get this beautiful position with a good pawn structure and an extra pawn. Let's find out if you can apply the knowledge you have got in this video to solve the homework. In this position, it's white to move. As always, nothing changes. You need to find the best move, but please try to go strategically about it. Of course, think about the questions you should ask yourself and write me in the comments what is your answer. Let's see how many hardworking students we have in our community. Once you're done, you might be wondering whether you have a real chess talent. Well, there is a way to find out. In this video, there is an absolutely astonishing position. If you can find the solution, now you can use these 3 questions to guide yourself, then you are truly a special chess player.